All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Bearded Bible Thinker podcast. I'm Rob Grunden, and I'll be your host today, the thinker himself, sort of. And anyway, so we're going to jump right in. I ran into a news story this morning that is CNN Politics. It's on CNN.com. And the headline is Voters in North Carolina have received absentee ballot request forms in the mail with Trump's face on them. So let's take a closer look at what this is about together. I love how, so the first thing that I noticed when I just pulled this up, I haven't read it or anything, but the first thing that I noticed that I thought was kind of funny, and this is just really clear. And you know what? At some point, I'll do this with a Fox News story as well, because they're all of these folks, as I said in another podcast, all of these folks are equally biased and spreading their own sort of agenda. It's just that Fox is typically like the opposite side of the opposite side of the coin on that. So, but this specifically is kind of funny how they spin this off like Donald Trump, like President Trump got blocked off 4 or 5 hours in his day and stamped and sent these in himself to a few people in North Carolina. If you look actually in this picture, I don't know, maybe there's a way to, if you're watching this on YouTube, you might actually be able to see what I'm talking about. But just real quick, I zoomed in on it. So it's really blurry, but in the, it's that paid for by the North Carolina Republican Party. Okay, that's what it's paid for by. So it's a local chapter of the Republican Party in North Carolina, and it was mailed from Raleigh, North Carolina, it looks like. Anyway, this did not come from Washington, D.C. But everything, I'll bet you that everything in this article is assuming that Donald Trump himself gave this order. This is just an example of news not really being news anymore, but just being kind of entertainment for some, or certainly incredibly skewed. If it is news at all, it's incredibly skewed news based on whoever's writing it and whatever channel you watch it on or whatever website you read it on. It is not simply facts. And it's actually kind of funny. Up here in the top of the CNN website, you see facts first, which I'm not sure they understand what those two words together actually mean. So voters in North Carolina have received absentee ballot request forms in the mail with Trump's face on them. Let's get away from ads real quick and put that up that way. Okay, given the crisis facing the United States Postal Service before a presidential election, the last thing John Herder expected to receive in the mail Saturday was an absentee ballot request form with President Donald Trump's face on it. Look, probably anything that you get from a Republican, the Democratic side of this, they're going to send out their things as well, and it'll have Joe Biden, his face on there. It'll have quotes from him or quotes from Kamala Harris. It's just, that's what they do. They send out stuff that didn't come from Donald Trump, and that stuff won't come directly from Joe Biden. It's just, it's junk mail that you get in the mail. And I actually heard a phrase, I wish I could remember exactly how it went, but I heard the great theologian Jerry Seinfeld said that the only thing that the only mail is magazines, bills, and junk mail. That's what the mail is. And I thought that was pretty funny and true. Although most of the magazines that I might get in the mail are also just junk mail and advertisements. But So anyway, all of these political things, you're going to get stuff in your own mailbox, whether it's local people or something like for something as high as the president of the United States election that's coming up. You're going to get stuff in the mail. The fact that this local thing, it's kind of written already in such a way that it's like, this is outrage. The guy says right here, "Is this a joke?" Herder said his wife told him as she opened up the mailer to reveal a photo of Trump grinning underneath the words, "Are you going to let the Democrats silence you? Act now to stand with President Trump." Look, the other side is going to do equally ridiculous things. It actually is, I guess I've come to expect it at this point, but it still kind of infuriates me at times how these news channels on both sides, again, these news channels will just spin whatever they need to spin. Like, this isn't even news. This shouldn't even be on national news, because who cares? Millions and millions and millions of Americans, probably everybody with a post office box or a mailbox on their street, is going to get some garbage like this in the mail from both sides throughout the next few months. So the fact that this made national news is a little stupid anyway. And most people have already made up their mind one way or another what they're going to do here. But anyway, I hate, it's what stinks about this is I've said I'm going to report. No, I don't want to be locked in that lot. I've said that I'm going to talk about on here some news that is kind of just kind of out there that day, or whatever I kind of find in the morning or whatever. And what's unfortunate is probably most of what I'm going to find is garbage like this. It's probably all going to be political propaganda from one side or another, which is frustrating. The whole idea, though, this is something maybe to talk about just real briefly. The whole idea about mail-in ballots in the first place. I don't know. Maybe if you're watching this on YouTube, maybe you could comment if you do see it, and if not, whatever. But if like, what do you think about mail-in ballots? I don't know how they security check all that stuff. Like, there might be legit ways to make that secure. I don't know, but I don't know. I guess my feeling just right up, and without understanding how mail-in balloting would work, absentee ballots, I guess, are kind of a typical thing that happens all the time. So there must be ways to validate these. But I just know, like, I've never done that. I've always gone to a polling place, like a lot of people. But I just wonder, like, I wouldn't pay my electric bill with cash in an envelope. And, whatever, $100 to $200 a month, whatever that ends up being at the worst time of year, I wouldn't put that in an envelope in cash and send it to them with a note attached to it, because I don't trust the process that much. Just the regular mail like, it would not be difficult to lose that, or it's actually happened to me before where, not often. The post office does a pretty good job at what they do, but it happens, right? Like, there are times when you might lose mail. It doesn't, it gets lost in translation, or there are people who've had issues where the money or cash or valuables or whatever have been stolen. That kind of thing happens. And so I just, not that that's typical. I don't want to paint a bad picture of, like, the post office or UPS or FedEx or any of these companies, because I get all my, like a lot of people, I'd start dancing when the UPS truck stops in front of my house and guy gets out with a box and starts walking up it's like woohoo moment, right? So they do a good job by and large, but it's just the idea that this is a pretty big deal, no matter what side you're on in the thing, or which way your vote is going to go. Like, this is a big deal, this election stuff. And I don't know. maybe there is a way to do it securely so that that's not a worry. I just don't know it. But I don't know. I hope that there's some sort of polling situation open. I'll wear a mask and stand 6 feet apart if I have to, but I would much rather do that than mail something in, personally. But I guess, whatever we need to do, we'll do, because it's an important thing. So voting is a pretty big deal. So yeah. All right, let's see here. Okay, so there's an article. This is in the Christianity Today website, and the headline is it's not enough to broadcast a service. Churches need to foster community. So that's a big thing right now. Broadcasting things. We've started to live stream what we do, and it's all captured afterward and put on our website, or you can watch it live on our website as well, or on Facebook. That's just the way things had to sort of morph into over the past 6 months or so. We had to figure out and think quickly, and luckily I'm kind of a nerd, so it was easier than it could have been and cheaper than it could have been probably, but we figured it all out, and we're doing the online thing now, which is it's been a good thing. I actually even received something this morning where someone was thankful because they were a little bit under the weather, and are recovering from being under the weather, but didn't want to come because they were a little sick, and they were able to take things in and be a part, even if only virtually, be a part of us yesterday morning. So it is a good thing. It's a great thing to have. Some of the most conservative church families on the planet who are just staunchly against any kind of different music or anything else coming into their like, we're going to do church this way and have the choir and have the, no matter what. Some of those churches still use like live streaming and YouTube to cast. So I don't know. It's a thing. Everybody is kind of jumping on that bandwagon a little bit for obvious reasons. We all kind of got shut down for a little bit. We didn't know at first, is this Ebola or a cold? Everyone kind of shut down for a while, and some places are still really shut down and closed. And so it begs the question, like, how do you still be a church? How do you still reach people and care for people when we're very much a society where Christian society, the Christian portion of our society, is still very much geared toward face-to-face, in-person, having that as a typical way that we reach people. This is how we go to hospitals and visit people, right? We come together in one another's homes. We go to events together. We gather each Sunday and spend time with one another in worshiping our great God, right? Like these are things that we've always done, especially here in America, where we've had a lot of freedom to do that. But even in places like China, that hates Christianity and will lose to it someday. But even in places as hostile as China, Christians get together. They figure it out. They come together. They worship together. They read scripture together. They rejoice because of the gospel together. So it's a thing. Being together is a thing everywhere for Christians, even in places that are incredibly hostile. So, but in this moment where like we had to shut everything and yet like rethink quickly, how are we going to do this? Even if it's just a month or 2 months. We have people who have cancer. We have people who there's an amazing lady that hurt her ankle and got a fracture break, and so she's been laid up, and she went to Bismarck at the hospital, and now she's somewhere else in a nursing home further away. And like, we have things we need to do, we have people we need to take care of, and so how do we reach them? So this article, I haven't read this, but even the headline is true. I'm assuming that by this picture, actually, that there's some sort of virtual community that they're going to talk about here. It's if you're just listening to the podcast, it's three MacBook Pro computers, which is the way to go. Three MacBook Pro computers and people on the screen like waving at one another. So I'm assuming this has a lot to do with Zoom meetings or something like that. But how do we foster community? How do we do community when we can't be together? And I remember, so we're kind of back to normal now for the most part, right? We still have some folks that aren't comfortable coming back quite yet because of COVID-19, and that's okay. We have some folks who are like, when they feel sick or whatever, they're less apt to come. That's actually one of the blessings from COVID-19, is we're actually taking, like, if we have a cold or something or anything, we're taking it a little more seriously and not coming anyway and toughing it out and spreading it everywhere. So that's a good thing. But so we're kind of back to normal. Even our community group that we have each Sunday night is back to normal. We come together, we eat, we hang out, we spend time, we have some discussion and stuff, and pray together. But we had a couple of Zoom meetings with our group that were good. It was a good thing. It was, tested the old internet connection a little bit, and we got through it. But it sucked. I mean, just to be perfectly honest, it is no replacement for being with people. Donna and I watch Alone, this series where people sign up and get approved and then get dropped off into different places and just have to survive essentially with nothing. They have a few objects to choose from, and they just have to live and survive. And the last one to make it, the last one to call it in, or last man standing sort of a thing, gets like $500,000, right? So, but it's just really entertaining to watch these people go through things and be creative and try to figure it out. But they're alone, right? Like very alone. All they have is a bunch of camera equipment to talk to. And that isolation is really detrimental. Like it is not good for them. Now, granted, if they could get on FaceTime and talk to their families and things like that, it would help, right? But I mean, I've spent some months in Afghanistan as a Marine, and I got to call on a satellite phone and talk to my wife, and I got to do things like that and communicate. But it's not the same, by any means. It's not the same. So we should always, I think, shoot for being together in person. But when that's not possible, it is good to be creative, because the worst thing is to just not be in contact. That's the worst thing that we could do. So be creative. We tried and failed, which is also okay. But we tried a weekly Zoom meeting and invited people from Facebook and other things to just Zoom in and pray together. Yeah, whatever's going on in life, right? We just get together and pray. Now, we had like hardly anyone took us up on it, and that's okay. But it's good to like be creative, try some things that are one of the churches did, who really big into Sunday school, and it gave our gal who is in charge of all that the idea too. And so she made up all these packets and set them in the sort of very front by the door of the church, and kids and parents could come by with their kids and grab a packet, right, for them to do things, to get a little bit of normal in their life or whatever. So it's good to be creative and to rethink a little bit and be prepared for things like this, because I don't know if you know this, but like Christianity is more hated by the moment in this nation. And not that it's going to lose by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. This is a war that we already know the end of. It is a war that we Christians already have watched happen with other nations. I go visit Rome sometime, and all of the persecution that happened there to Christian people, all of the just like being burned at the stake, being Nero, the emperor, who was the emperor as New Testament books were being written. Nero would impale Christians and light them on fire to light up his garden parties. I mean, all of the crazy, terrible things that have been happening to Christians since Christians were a thing. And now Christians can go visit Rome and look at the ruins of Rome. That's the way that it's always going to be, because we win this war, right? So people in America can hate Christians more and more and more. And it's sad and it's hard because we've grown up in that. But at the end of the day, we win. So, but with that being said, America, we're going to watch. It doesn't matter at this point as much what we do, right? It does matter what we do, but it's not going to change things in the way that the direction of the nation is going. It's not going to make any abrupt changes. At least I don't see that happening. No reaction from the church is going to make the LGBTQ movement go, oh yeah, I never thought of that. I mean, and not to just single them out, but all of the stuff, the abortion clinics are not going to automatically go, oh, you know what? Shoot, I never thought about looking at the science behind it and realizing that we're actually killing a human for convenience, mostly. That's just not going to happen. We're just going downhill, right? We're just spiraling downhill morally. And Christians should be prepared for China-like living. Or to renounce your faith and show everyone you're not a Christian in the first place. But we should be prepared. This was actually a good exercise for the church to kind of have to think, be forced to think outside of the box a little bit when it comes to meeting together, figuring things out. This has been a good thing for the church, I think. Yeah, it's been a good thing. So I just want to end today like this. Some of the things I've just been talking about even could tie into this and fit into it, because we're a nation right now, and even among Christianity, who should know better, we're a nation right now filled with people hating people, right? Filled with people just enemies are all over the place. Christians even make enemies with other Christians because we differ in opinions or something like that. And we tend to fight. And sometimes Christians fight publicly, which is another pet peeve of mine. Grow up a little and don't do that. There's a place for that, right? But almost always you're serving yourself by the things you put on Facebook, and it's not going to change a mind. So anyway, I'll step off the soapbox. We need to close up here. But I just want to encourage you to take seriously the words of Jesus today. In Matthew chapter 5, verse... what verse? Aha. I had the wrong page up. Matthew chapter 5, verse 43. He says, "You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." So that's what I want to encourage you to do this week. All right. So take a look on Facebook, and before you type anything or share an article in response to someone that fired you up, take a minute. Just take a minute and breathe a little. Right? Don't make any crazy rash decisions and end up looking as crazy as the person you're about to be mad at. Think a minute, take a step back, breathe, and pray for them. Pray for them. Pray for your enemies. Care about your enemies. Love your enemies. Now that is really hard to do, right? I preached on this very thing a month or two ago, and it is really hard to do. It's not something you can just will yourself to do. That's why Jesus says to pray for your enemies, because it is very difficult to be talking to the creator of the universe and praying for people that you struggle with hating even. Okay? It's very difficult to pray to the Father to save Nancy Pelosi and work in her heart, right? That's difficult for me. But as I do that, I'm automatically beginning to think differently about her. I'm beginning to think about her as another human that needs Jesus Christ in her life, rather than that mean lady who's got an agenda, right? That I see typically when I read news and things like that. You begin to look at people differently. So this week, make sure that you at least take some moments, and when you get frustrated with somebody, whether it's a news thing or somebody you work with or whatever, when you get frustrated with someone, take a minute silently or whatever and actually pray for them. If you make that a regular thing, you'll see that it actually does change your mind a little bit about that person and about who they are and what their actual needs are. It'll actually change your mind a little bit and humanize them a little bit more, and you'll begin to see them as a person who, like you, needs Jesus Christ in their life as their King. So, all right, we're going to shut her down here for today. We'll see you again hopefully soon, probably tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have some more junk to talk about. All right, have a great day.